I already want to knit another one of these. Spooky season vibes. Autumn means cables, birthday present to myself. Hello and welcome to What Hannah Knits. On this channel, I love to chat to you about everything knitting related. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. It's great to see you again. And if you are new here, I hope that you will stick around and chat about knitting with us. It feels like it's been quite a while since I sat down to film one of these regular podcast style episodes. So I do have quite a bit to share with you today. I have 3 finished objects and also 2 works in progress. And the 2 projects that I am working on at the moment are both quite big, complex projects. So they're very exciting and I can't wait to share them with you. Something that we love to do here is to pop a comment down below and share what you are knitting on whilst you're watching this video. And that's firstly because I'm just nosy and I love to know what you are working on whilst you're watching me chat about my knitting. But also it feels like we are all knitting together from wherever we are in the world and we're having one huge knit and chat together. So definitely grab a project, grab a cozy drink, let me know down below what you're up to and let's get into talking about my knitting. As always, I am going to start by talking about what I'm wearing today. This is the cardigan number 9. It is a pattern by my favourite things Knitwear. It is a saddle shoulder design with a crew neck and I chose these toggle style buttons for mine. I knit mine in some random undyed creamy coloured DK weight yarn that I had purchased on eBay. And I held that with a strand of the Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair in the colour fennel seed. So the combination of those 2 yarns has created a marling to the fabric. It is quite subtle because the undertones of both the colours are similar. So from afar it just looks like a really, really pale lime green, but up close you can see, hopefully you can see that there is a little bit of a marl to the fabric. It's also knit at a loose-ish gauge, so it is knit on 5mm needles. So I found that this has been perfect for the British summer weather. I've definitely been getting a lot of wear out of this year. Let's move on to my finished objects. First up, I have my mixed rib camisole. This is a pattern by Florence Miller or Handmade by Florence. This is always a little bit of a weird angle, but I feel it's the best way to show this. And of course, as always, I will insert some footage of this being worn so that you can see it a little better. So this camisole is knit from the top down. You start by knitting the back and the front panels flat, whilst also shaping this neckline here. Then you work some increases for the armholes and join in the round to knit the body. There is an option to include decreases for some optional waist shaping, which I have included. Hopefully you can see that, but the decreases give this lovely detail down the side of the camisole. And once you cast off the body, you finish the armholes and the neck edge with a I-cord. So it gives this really lovely, neat effect for all of those finishings. The design features this lovely slashed neckline and it is of course knit in an all-over mixed rib, as the name suggests, and it includes a portion of twisted stitches. Hopefully you can see a better look at the fabric. Hopefully this focuses, but here is a better look at that mixed rib pattern. This is knit on 3mm needles, so it definitely isn't one of those instant gratification projects. It felt like it was on my needles for a very, very long time, and particularly when I was knitting the front and back panels flat, it felt like it was very, very slow progress. And that's partly due to the twisted stitches, particularly when you're knitting flat, you're working twisted purls, which for me seem to really slow down my progress. Once I got this joined in the round, I could sort of see the end was in sight, and I had a lot more motivation to knit on this, and it seemed to go by a lot quicker, particularly because I was working the decreases, so the number of stitches was reducing as I was working through the project. But certainly at the beginning of this project, I was finding it very, very hard to motivate myself to work on this because the progress just felt so slow. That being said, the finished result of this is so worth all of that hard work, and I already want to knit another one of these, and I'm planning to probably do another next summer. I really enjoyed the pattern itself. I found that it was very clear, very well laid out, and the fit of the finished garment is absolutely perfect for me. So really pleased with the design and the pattern. I also really love the yarn that I chose for this. So I used the recommended yarn, which is the Knitting for Olive Merino, and I chose the colour Morning Haze. So I really do love a grey, and this is a pretty perfect grey for me. It has a lot of dimension, so it's not a flat colour, and it's not too dark, not too light. It is just in that perfect shade of grey. So I think that I will get a lot of wear out of this. I've been sort of holding off from wearing it because I wanted to keep it nice to show on this episode. We are in September now, but the weather hasn't cooled down too much here. It's still pretty warm. It's certainly warm enough for me to wear this. So I'm hoping that I can get some wear out of it before the weather gets too cold. My next finished object is definitely giving me spooky season vibes, just because of the colours that are going on in the yarn. They remind me a little bit of Halloween. This is the Harlow Sweater V-neck, and it is a design by Kadri. I'm just going to do this weird angle again to show it a little bit better. This is a dropped shoulder construction, and this particular type of dropped shoulder construction is something that is new to me. So you start by knitting a really long I-cord, which you can see runs across the entire back of the sweater there. You then pick up stitches from this I-cord to knit the back, and it does have some short row shaping in the back if I remember correctly, and then you pick up stitches again from this I-cord to knit down for the front panels, and you of course do your shaping in the front for the V-neck, and then you join in the round and knit the body in the round before coming back to pick up these stitches here to make the sleeves. All of the finishings are in 2x2 rib, so you have your 2x2 rib here, and it does feature a split hem. And on the neckline you knit again 2x2 rib, but it is a folded neckline. And I think that just gives a really nice, neat result there. I always think that my 2x2 rib looks a lot neater than my 1x1, so I love when sweaters feature 2x2 rather than 1x1. The sleeves have some decreases, but not too many. So as you can see, they are nice and wide, and I quite enjoy that. It fits in with the oversized design of the whole garment. This seemed to fly off the needles, particularly because I had been knitting the mixed rib camisole at the same time, which was all over ribbed and on very small needles, whereas this was on 4.5mm needles and mostly just plain stockinette. So this was a very welcome change up from the mixed rib camisole. And as I say, it seemed to really just fly off the needles. I really enjoyed making this, and I really enjoyed the pattern. This was my first time working from one of Kadri's patterns, and I will definitely return to her patterns in the future. And this is another knitted garment of which I would like to make a second one, possibly in a colour that fits into my wardrobe a little bit more. I would really like to make this in a nice neutral colour, probably with a wool and a mohair strand held together. Let's talk about the yarn that I used. So I actually thrifted it from Vinted. It is the Jaeger Potpourri yarn, and it is a blend of wool and silk. As you can see, it has these tweed specks running throughout the yarn, and the base is a teal blue colour. The tweed specks are greens and purples, so that's why I was saying it gives me actually those Halloween spooky vibes. The more I was working on it, the more I just couldn't stop seeing them as Halloween colours. I mentioned in my previous episode when I was working on this that I wasn't too sure about the yarn. It is quite busy with those tweed specks going on. The more I worked on this though, the more I started to love it, and I'm still not sure how this will fit into my wardrobe, and it may be something that I do wear more just around the house, but I actually kind of love this now, and I think it may become my spooky season sweater. This sweater also completely transformed with blocking. The fabric seems to have gained a lot of drape with that blocking process, and all of the ribbing, of course, completely relaxed out. I did a little blocking transformation video with this sweater over on my TikTok and Instagram page. So if you want to see the transformation of before and after blocking with this sweater, feel free to head over there and have a look. And finally, I have finished a pair of socks. I haven't woven in the end, so they're technically not finished, but I will get around to doing that. These have been my knitting and walking project, so I've been predominantly knitting on these on my daily dog walk. Other than working the heels and the toes, I've been doing those at home because they're a little bit too fiddly to do whilst walking. The pattern that I used is from the Hello Sailor sock set by Summer Lee Designs, and this specific pattern is the scattered pearl sock. So they have a 2x2 rib cuff, and the body of the sock is knit in this all over texture. It's a really simple just knit and purl texture. The heel is a 4/4 heel or a peasant heel, and the toe is a wedged toe. This darker grey yarn is the Yarn Smith's merino sock. It's a standard blend of merino wool and nylon. For the contrast heels and toes, I use the Drops for Belle, which is the standard sock yarn by Drops, and that's just a blend of wool and polyamide. These have been blocked, but I have broken my sock blockers. So I blocked them just by laying them out on the blocking mats and sort of pulling them into roughly the shape that I thought they should be. So they don't look as great as when they've been done on the sock blockers, but they'll be absolutely fine. We are starting to lose the light. I forget how quickly the nights draw in once we get into autumn. So hopefully this is okay. I'm trying to squeeze this in after work, so hopefully it's not too dark. My next work in progress is very, very exciting. This is what it is looking like at the moment. This is the Inge sweater. It is a design by Knit. It's a raglan sweater with this all over colorwork pattern, and the designer states that it is 70s inspired, and I can definitely see that inspiration in these motifs. As you can see, I have just split for sleeves. So I've split for sleeves and knit one row. I feel like the yoke portion of this absolutely flew by, bearing in mind that it is all over colourwork. I felt like I worked through this really, really quickly. You start this sweater by casting on for the neckline, and you knit a small portion of plain stockinette for this rolled edge here, and you then move in to the ribbing. You work all of the short row shaping before you start the colour work, which is absolutely great because that means that you never have to work colour work on the wrong side. You're only ever working it in the round. When I purchased the pattern, I was fully prepared to have to work colour work on the wrong side. I have done it before. It's a little bit tedious, but I thought I'll just get through that section. So when I purchased the pattern and realised that I would be working all of the colour work in the round, I was very pleased. I have set myself a deadline to finish this sweater, and that is the 21st of November. The reason for that is because that is my 30th birthday. So this is going to be a 30th birthday present to myself. I'm feeling a little bit conflicted about turning 30. So this is my attempt to make it a little bit less scary because I've got a special sweater to look forward to. Now, I'm under no illusion that 30 is old, but I, for some reason, just find the thought of leaving my 20s behind a little bit scary. And I think big birthdays can often make us reflect on our achievements and maybe worry that we haven't achieved enough. So this is my attempt to make turning 30 a little bit less scary. Now, if you have been watching my content from the very beginning, you may recognise this particular yarn and this particular colour scheme. So these are all leftovers from my Albertville 1992 ski sweater, which I knit as my Christmas jumper last year. So this is the Holstgarn Super Soft yarn. It is a 100% wool yarn and it's a light fingering weight. So I'm holding it double to meet gauge for this sweater. Now this is going to really test my memory to see if I can remember the names of these colours. The white is called Bleached White. I then have this burgundy colour which is Cranberry, I believe. You have the red which is Poppy, and then there is this lighter blue and of course the navy blue, and the names of those escape me, so all of the shade names will be on the screen. In the sample photos, the designer uses a light colour for this background colour where I am using the navy blue, and then these diamond motifs are knit in a darker colour. I decided to invert that and use the darker colour as my background colour just because this is very, very light, and for me, I don't know if that would look the best next to my skin, I'm not sure, but mainly because it would end up absolutely covered in makeup with this high neckline. So the darker colour is a much safer bet for me. Also in the sample photos, these little polka dot things, that's what we're going to call them, they are all knit in the same contrast colour. So that would be contrast colour 2. In place of contrast colour 2, I am alternating between 3 different colours. So the burgundy, the red and the light blue. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'm absolutely loving how this is looking so far. I know from experience with using this Holstgarn yarn, it completely transforms with blocking. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the blocking transformation once this is done, but it's certainly looking quite nice so far. The only concern that I do have with this is the armholes are looking particularly huge. It is an oversized design, so I'm sure it will be absolutely fine, but we shall see once we get to that stage. Maybe I will have to include more decreases if I'm finding that it looks too big. You do cast on a significant amount of stitches for the underarm, but obviously I can't reduce that number of stitches, otherwise the pattern won't line up. So we'll see, maybe I can come up with something if I feel that it will be too big once I get to that stage, but I have every faith that this will work out. My next work in progress is again something that I am very excited about. For me, autumn means cables. I don't know why, but I just associate autumn with cables and winter with colourwork. So I am knitting a all over moss stitch and cable cardigan. This is another project by Knit. Until casting on the Inge sweater, I had never knit any of her designs, and now I'm knitting 2 at the same time. Now, this is a little hard to see what's going on. Firstly, because the yarn is quite dark. Secondly, because we really are losing the light outside now. And thirdly, it's at an awkward stage. But I will pop up a photo so you can see what this will look like when it's finished. This is a all over cabled and moss stitch cardigan with a crew neck. and it has a raglan construction. So you start by casting on for where the neckline will eventually be, and you are then just working through the chart to work the cables and the moss stitch whilst also making those raglan increases. There are also some short rows just to raise up this back neck. So the back of the cardigan is entirely in a double moss stitch, and you have these cables across the front and running down the sleeves as well. The neck seems to look quite large at the moment. I've had a look through some of the Ravelry projects, and a lot of people say that it does look large, but when you add in that ribbed neckline at the end, it's surprising how much this will cinch in. So I'm holding out a lot of hope for that. So I only cast this on maybe 3 or 4 days ago, so I've made quite a lot of progress on it so far. It is knit on 6mm needles, so it goes by fairly quickly. And I am enjoying it. The one thing I would say is the chart isn't laid out in the most logical way, at least for me. So I'm finding working from this particular chart a little bit of a struggle. But other than that, I am really enjoying working this. And the repeats for the cables seem to be slowly sinking in to my memory. So I think I'm pretty much at a point where, as long as I use a row counter and I know which row I'm in relation to the cable repeats, I will be able to work this without the charts. Certainly once those raglan increases are finished, I think working the body, I will be absolutely fine to do that without the chart. There really is no better feeling than when you're working on something like this and you suddenly realise that you have memorised the chart and you don't need to work from it anymore. And then from there, the project just seems to fly by. Let's talk about the yarn that I am using. If you have watched some of my previous episodes, you may recognise this. This is another Vinted purchase. It is some vintage Aran weight 100% wool. The label for this is originally from a shop in Norfolk, which seems to have since closed down, but it's this really deep chocolatey brown. Very, very autumnal. This is very, very sheepy and rustic, which is exactly how I like my woolen yarns. You may be able to see, but it has a lot of those guard hairs sticking off it, which give it a little bit of a scratch factor, but not too much. But this does also have a softness to it, and it feels lovely on the hands as you're knitting with it. And the fabric that I'm getting using these 6mm needles feels really, really lovely. This design is actually intended to be knit in a DK weight yarn. So if you were to use the recommended yarn, you would get a much lighter, loftier, airy fabric than what I'm getting. So my finished garment will behave a little bit different to what the designer intended in terms of the drape and the way that the fabric will sit. And I almost think that this will be more like a jacket because it is in a thicker weight yarn in that 100% wool. It's going to be a little bit stiffer. So I think this really will be perfect for the autumn when it's not quite cold enough to wear a winter coat, but you need a layer like this. So I really want to get this finished before the weather gets really, really cold so that I can wear this as a autumn jacket. And the other thing to mention about this is it sheds little tiny black and brown fibres everywhere. So my clean white bedding is now covered in little sheepy hairs. I do just have one acquisition that I would like to speak about today. If you couldn't tell already, I really love to shop secondhand for my yarn. Vinted is one of my favourite places to find secondhand yarn. I have found some really great bargains on there, and I've found some really exciting vintage yarns. And this is one of them. This is the Lister's Shetland 2-ply. It's in this really dark, almost black shade. It's probably going to show up as very dark on camera, but in person it is just slightly off black. I'd probably describe this as charcoal. It's a really fine 2-ply weight. I was really excited when this first came in, so I decided to knit up a little swatch just to see how it might knit up. I held it double on 3.75mm needles and got a 22 stitch gauge. So it knits up at probably a light DK weight when held double. This is 100% wool, made in England, and it is extremely soft. It also came packaged in the original brown paper, so I'll insert a little photo of that original brown paper. Each one of these skeins has 100 grams and I have 9 of these in total, so a fair amount of yarn there. I'm yet to decide exactly what I want to knit, but I think with it being so dark it will probably need to be plain stockinette, because any type of cable or texture is going to get completely lost in this yarn. That being said, I do own the pattern for the Seaway pullover. I think that's the name of it. It's a pattern by Ozetta. It's a sweater that's in all over cables, but the cables are just on a background of plain stockinette rather than having pearls either side of the cables to make them pop. And I have seen people knit that in a really dark, either navy or charcoal yarn, and you can still see that wavy texture. So I'm contemplating whether I should knit that one with this yarn, because I really want to knit that sweater. I've just been waiting for the right yarn to come up. So that is everything that I have to talk about today. I do feel that I have space on my needles for potentially another project. So I may cast on a sock or an accessory soon. I do also have a self-drafted cardigan that you may remember from a few episodes ago that just hasn't been touched. So I would like to pick that one up again at some point, because it would be nice to get that finished, but I just don't have a lot of motivation to use my brain to actually think about stitch counts and things at the moment. So we shall see when I decide to get around to finishing that one. If you have made it through to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching and for listening to me chat about my knitting today. I hope you've been knitting along with me, and please do let me know what that project is that you're working on, and I really hope that I will see you again very soon. Bye!